Hello, everybody. My name is Ricardo Ramos. I'm from the city of Wyndham, and I'm a town planner.
All right, stop. Everybody stop. Ricardo, Jack Sparrow, whoever you are, just hang on there, tough guy. I'm from the blue team, but I'm pretending to be from the yellow team because I'd like to raise an objection. Do we have a permit for this?
I don't know, man. Did we need a permit?
Well, I think we did. We submitted an approval, but did we publish in the newspaper and wait 2 weeks?
It's a hackathon. Why would we even need to do that?
Yeah, I know. 2 days, accelerated, exciting ideas. So we're bringing them to life now. So why don't we jump online and have a look and see where the approval's at?
You can't jump online. You have to go to council, speak to a planner, face to face, or call and wait through the queue. It's just not going to work.
But we've got all these people here wanting to see the magic show. What are we going to do?
All right. So
that's it from me.
So whoever's gone through the planning process before, Troy and I were doing a little bit of role play to show you some of the difficulties that are faced through the planning permit process. Our challenge as a team was, how might we simplify and improve the experience of planning permits to achieve efficient and effective outcomes? So to do that, we had a good mix of town planners, data and design specialists, solution specialist, research and government specialist, and the blue team consists of, starting over there from the end, Steve, Ian, Matt, Chris, Shetal, Troy, and Chris.
Okay, I'm going to talk you through, there's all of us again, I'm going to talk you through the process quickly. It's design thinking, basically. First, we understand the challenge. We ask who, what, why, when, how. The why is particularly important. But then we look at the users, personas, and empathy mapping. Success factors, ideation, critical, clustering and dot voting, and idea selection. This is an example of understanding the challenge. One insight we gained is it takes a long time for these applications to be processed, fairly or unfairly, and largely fairly, because there is a lot of information to gather and contend with for a town planner. Then we looked at users. Here's one of the users that we identified. It's a citizen. It's Joe Average. She's 24. She's a banker. She lives in Point Cook. Joe and her partner want to build, and the process is making Joe feel bamboozled with the technical language and just how hard it is to get the information that she needs. She's worried about getting it wrong, maybe being ripped off by a professional consultant, especially if she doesn't speak English natively. She's frustrated. She's frustrated with the apparent pettiness of the system, and she's suspicious that other people are going around the system, and maybe she should do that too. Then there's Katie. She's our consultant. She's 29. She lives in Melbourne. She wants consistent and centralized lodgement and better communication. That's the key thing for her. She's almost enraged sometimes with the time wasting and how long it takes to get the information she wants. And she's stressed about meeting her clients' expectations. Then we have Ricardo, who we have in person. He's 32. He lives in Footscray. Ricardo just wants to make positive decisions. He's feeling overworked. He's anxious about negative customer attitudes. He's confused about legacy legislation and how to apply it. But when he does make a decision and get a good outcome, he gets a lot of satisfaction from that. So from that helped us define 3 success factors. Firstly, human. So we wanted our customers to empathize with the town planners and to understand town planning, to reset the tone, really, so they come in with a more positive attitude, because there's a lot of negative feeling around the process at the moment. So we're going to make it more human. It's a system that understands me, communicates in a way I can understand, and it meets my needs. So a more natural language in the system. It's faster and cheaper, and it's transparent. A system that I can track, and where progress is very clear, and that's a very key thing for Katie. Ideation was probably the most important thing. We want lots and lots of ideas. We want that mix of, as I said in the video, that innocence and expertise coming together to generate lots of ideas. Thinking is hard work. We make it fun. We did brain walking, where everyone has their own piece of paper, and you walk every 60 seconds. You move to the next paper. You read what's there before. You make fresh connections. generate new ideas. We also did worst idea. At the end of the day, when we got tired, everyone went to a really dark place. Give us your deepest, darkest, baddest solutions. Apart from anything else, it's hilarious. My favorite was every month the scheme should be thematic. So this month, all site plans should include at least one interpretation of the Star Wars universe. And it changes every month. Then we asked ourselves, well, as funny as that is, can we make that work? Let's try and make that work. And if not, what's the opposite of that? And doing that polar positive can sometimes be really revealing because you tend to uncover customer moments that you've never even looked at before. So it's a good way of generating fresh ideas. Then we filtered out the ideas, evaluated them, and we came up with our solution, which Chris is going to talk us through.
Ladies and gentlemen, the blue team are nothing if not very ambitious. The task we took on was to take 30 years of planning legislation that had been subjected to continuous improvements, i.e. making it more complex, and we were trying to make it simple. We thought we could, 2 days, 48 hours, the right people in the room, let's see what we can do to make planning simple, underpinned by a centralised system, underpinned by trying to make the best of the structures that we've already got in place. So we know that individual councils make good decisions. We know that state legislation is there and serves a purpose as well. How can we augment those two through the best and latest of technology to make planning better for people and really focus on the user? So what we did was we took the persona of Joe. If you'll recall Joe, living in Point Cook, Joe Average as we called her. Apologies to anyone called Joe from Point Cook who may be in the room today. You're not average. What we did was we had a look at the key pain points that Joe may be facing and work through those. The first is the complexity of the planning scheme and the complexity of the information that's out there. If one is to Google planning scheme in Victoria, this is the first document that comes up, and technically it's perfect. The challenge is it's 278 pages long, and Joe wants to build a shed. Joe doesn't want to read a novel on the planning scheme. And that's augmented by further information that the councils have chose to reproduce and replicate as well. The first solution that we'll want to pitch to you today is Jocelyn. So Jocelyn's part of an app. The app is called Planning Together, and Jocelyn is an attempt to humanise the planning process through a conversational interface that talks the applicant through the planning process. So Jocelyn is simple to understand, uses common language, even replays language back to you that you've already used, and validates the submission as we go. So don't just take my word for it though. Chris is going to introduce you to Jocelyn and give a demonstration of Jocelyn's capabilities in action. Okay, so the app is called Planning Together. Jocelyn is the star of Planning Together. So started with a basic question, how can I help? So what Chris is doing here, he's having a conversation. He's explaining to Jocelyn what he wants to do. He's typing in there, he wants to build an extension. Okay, so Jocelyn's validating that information as we go, making sure that what's being typed in is correct and asking for further information. Now, behind the scenes, this is where the smarts of technology come in. 123 Point Cook Street. Jocelyn knows that's in Wyndham. Jocelyn is able to go to the Wyndham rules and drag those into the planning process and make sure that this is all seamless. So it's not incumbent on our applicant Joe to be able to understand Wyndham planning legislation. Jocelyn will find that for you. So we've got a form here. We're asking the customer what their name is. We're not asking first name, like middle name, last name. We're saying, let's have a conversation. Let's get to know you a bit better. An email address so we can follow through as well. Okay, and Jocelyn's setting an expectation up front, saying, look, we can do this now. It's going to take a little bit of time. This is what it will help you get through it. We've got opportunities here to gather information. Really easy to take photos of documents that might be handy and upload those. And here we go. Nice, simple language. Tell me a bit about your development. So what's happening here is Chris is putting in inputs. So Chris is putting in there that the extension is worth X amount. behind the scenes, there's an algorithm running. It's looking at, well, what type of dwelling is it? We know it's 123 Point Cook Street, so we're looking it up on the planning overlay, seeing where that is, what type of dwelling it is. We're also looking up how much the extension is going to cost, and we're presenting back to Chris what that is going to cost for him to put the planning submission in. Okay. And then we finalise it all by taking the opportunity to learn, and we're coming back through with a survey to say, how was that experience for you? Net Promoter Score, let's learn from it and grow as we go. So that's Jocelyn, the first part of our solutions that we would like to present to you today. Now, we'll call a pain point. It's complex, it's difficult, it's challenging, there's a lot of information. So there is another bit to this. Oh, before I get to that, Jocelyn also manages the pain point of lack of transparency. So we're pushing out information. So Jocelyn won't wait for you to call up and ask how your planning application's going. Jocelyn will tell you. Okay, so again, our pain point is too much information, very difficult to understand.
Okay, this is a little side idea that we had that we just thought we'd keep in there because it's a bit of fun. So we want people to empathise with the town planners and educate them about the town planning process. What better than a game? Because games are just like real life, but with simpler rules and clearer goals. And the fun in games actually comes from learning. If you've ever read Theory of Fun for Game Design, then you'll know that learning, recognizing chunking and grokking patterns is where the fun is. And the fun comes from that click of comprehension, that moment of mastery. So what better game is there than town planning? Let's have a play. So here I am. I'm a town planner in my customer service center, and the goal of the game is to make good decisions. And in comes a customer. This is level 1.
I just want my shed to store hay. Bloody ridiculous, I have to get a permit, mate. Grrr!
Okay, now the aim of the game is to use the available information to make a good decision. And at level 1, it's quite easy. There's not too much information. And the game is trying to trick you. See, here in the application form, it says no trees, but if you play properly, you'll notice when you go to the satellite image, there are trees. So the correct decision in that round is to reject it. But later on, if I make a bad decision, then there are consequences. And then
I want to build a fish and chip shop with booze, catering for weddings, live DJs until 3 a.m, and I want snakes.
Okay, it gets really, really hard. And the point of the game is town planning is hard. And in reality, these guys have to contend with complexity. Now we've got all these reports to examine, and the scheme is got bigger. You see how many pages are? In reality, the scheme is 800 pages long. So at some point, the player realizes, I can't do this. And I think that's the ultimate point of the game.
Okay, so thank you, Chris. So let's anchor back. The first pain point was around information, challenges, and getting people up to speed on what the planning permit is about and humanising it. We've done that through Jocelyn, and we've done that through the game. The second pain point that we would like to address is really around the length of time and the cost it takes to submit an application. And again, I'd like to introduce Jocelyn back to the stage, but this is Jocelyn 2.0. Jocelyn 2.0 is underpinned and powered by machine learning and centralised data stores that help Jocelyn make better decisions as time goes on. So Jocelyn 2.0 will look through the planning applications that are coming in. She'll start to pick up patterns. She'll start to pick up what sort of applications get approved, what sort of applications don't, and make recommendations to two people, back to the applicant, of course, to say, hey, well, this is a kind of application that would take around about 10 to 12 days to get through. It's fairly simple, but also back to the town planner to say, look, 95% of applications like this tend to get approved. You can just green light it. Here's some risk points for you to have a look at. So we're improving the process at the point of decision. And the impact of that, we hypothesise, is that we'll be able to make significant inroads in the length of time it takes to get to a decision around the planning process. So taking what is currently a statutory 60-day process and really slashing that by a considerable margin by augmenting the human elements of planning with modern technology. Pain point number 3, For those of you counting polygons, there's 79 of them there. Those 79 polygons represent the 79 local government jurisdictions in Victoria. That means that there's 79 organisations making planning decisions, potentially in 79 different ways, with 79 different pieces of information going out to customers. We think there's opportunities to streamline and simplify that so we can create a more consistent experience, particularly for those people like our consultant persona who may be applying for planning permits across those different jurisdictions in any given week. So what we'd like to do around our next phase of Jocelyn is sort out what's happening behind the scenes and start to get some centralised information stores. And again, that will help augment the machine learning and help Jocelyn make better decisions overall. But more importantly, it will help to realise where there's opportunities to streamline and simplify and make it a consistent process for all of our applicants. We recognise, however, that moving to a single application with a single data store underneath is going to be a big, hairy and audacious project to take on. Therefore, we propose some step changes. We hypothesise that Jocelyn won't take a long time to build in its first iteration, perhaps a few months with the right investment and the right people coming together, and we could start to leverage off those benefits early on as a proof of concept to see if we can build on it and take it further and further down the track. So this is our roadmap towards success.
So it's going to be the same, like uploading system and same application form and stuff for every council? Is that how it's going to work?
That's correct, yes.
Right, okay. So it's going to be like a standardised form for every council?
That's correct.
Have it uploaded. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's going to make things a lot easier. And then we can then upload Section 54 requests, further information requests, stuff like that via the online portal, not via email or hard copy?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So that was a bit of validation that we did with an actual user. So in conclusion, have we met our success factors? Is it more human? Yes, we have the game which helps you empathize with town planners and understand town planning a little bit. We have a natural language interface. It's a system that understands me, communicates in a way I understand and meets my needs. It's certainly faster and cheaper with this centralized lodgement system, which is also really cheaper. It's transparent. It's a system that I can track and where progress is clear. I can be passive, but be informed with push information. And that is the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you.
Well done, Blue Team. Fantastic. Stay here while, or grab a seat or whatever while we prepare some feedback. I'm not sure if Kim's going to join me up here for feedback. I'm happy to hold the stage by myself, but well done, Team Blue. Always tough going first. And I thought, aside from Troy, you should definitely stick to your day job, the acting skills. At the outset with Ricardo, I did think it was an excellent dramatisation of our frustrations with the planning system. And having lived through almost exactly the scenario that you're talking about just in the last year with the Kingborough Municipal Council in southern suburbs of Tasmania, or of Hobart, I know exactly what you're talking about here. In fact, in lots of ways, planning represents all that can be great about public policy and government and the way we think about the future, make better places for community, drive economic outcomes and so on. It can be all the things that's great about government, and it can represent all the things that's wrong with government at the same time in the way that we deal with it. So I thought it was beautiful the way you picked up on those success factors, human, faster and cheaper and transparent, because ultimately I know as a consumer, people at the centre of these services, that's exactly what I want. And in the days of rate capping and a whole range of other constraints on government and on local government particularly, we're not going to have more money to do these things in the future. We're going to have less. And the whole idea of transparency, I think, is a fantastic idea, and I want to just explore that in my comments to you in a moment. But before that, can I just say I think I might have fallen in love with Jocelyn, because in a strictly mutually respectful way, of course, but Jocelyn is particularly when the advent of machine learning really is here now, and really this is what you're talking about is highly achievable, highly doable, and so on. So it's not flights of fancy. The whole idea of machine learning and allowing us to have that human interface through a really complex and often, we see government, particularly in planning, we might only deal with the planning system as consumers once or twice, in our lifetimes if we're building or if we're lucky. And so having that human interface to take us there is just a really great idea. I love the idea. When we talk about transparency in government, we often think of FOIs and all the sort of bureaucracy of transparency and public accounts committees and all of those other inquiry bodies and bits and pieces we kind of represent of transparency. But the truth is, if you think about transparency in the commercial world, what's driving real wealth, I always think of Domino's Pizza. And if anyone orders Domino's Pizza off their app, you know that what happens as soon as you hit order, it counts down a clock, dough being kneaded, dough going into oven, pizza coming out of oven, pizza coming into delivery van, and then it shows me the delivery van. It even shows me what the delivery boy's listening to, his Metallica playlist or what have you, until the pizza arrives at my doorstep. And it's that transparency of service that keeps me going back to Domino's, because I can stop my kids whinging about when's the pizza arriving, Dad. And we need to think much more I think government's got a lot to learn from Domino's. And I love the way you described transparency there. It's not about some, public account or what have you. It's just about telling our customers and our people, our citizens, people who are interacting with our service, what's going on now and what the next step is, rather than them sitting back and guessing. And we'll take so much heat out of the system by doing that. I also love the sort of idea of gamification, because ultimately we're all being gamification and micro feedback through your survey. We're all being conditioned as Airbnb users or Uber users or eBay users to rate your buyer, rate your seller, and we need as government to provide those sorts of two-way conversations with our citizens as well, so they can tell us how we went and we can tell them how they went a bit as well. That's a complex thing in government. But I love that idea as well, so congratulations. Just as a note, I love that your $4 project was going to cost $604 in planning fees. That seemed pretty accurate. So I think you've done an outstanding job.